In this week's edition of Voices of Agriculture, the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau presents Insights from Agriculture's New Generation. The program explores the challenges faced by young people who are interested in pursuing careers in farming or agriculture-related fields. Welcome to Pennsylvania Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture. The future of farming in Pennsylvania and across the United States is frequently the topic of discussion in agriculture. Where will the next generation of farmers come from is a question that concerns farm families, universities, agribusinesses, and others whose livelihoods are tied directly and indirectly to farming. There are many opportunities in agriculture, but at the same time there are many obstacles that threaten farm families and the future of food production in the United States, and that's something that should concern all Americans. We begin our program on a traditional family farm in Lehigh County, where a farm family found that its livelihood could have been threatened by regulations coming out of Washington.
I surely wouldn't be near as progressed on farming as I am now. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to have as much fun on the farm as I do now. I mean, I love driving the tractors. It's what I've been doing since I'm 13, 12, and you know, it's just kind of one of those things where it'd be depressing if that would have occurred.
That's Dietrich talking about proposed U.S. Labor Department regulations that would have limited him and children across the nation from doing typical chores on the farm. The new regs would also have prohibited Adam's 12-year-old brother Josh from doing the most basic of chores, such as feeding baby calves.
I would have been pretty upset watching others do the work and just standing there watching them.
Meanwhile, Jessica Dietrich, who is now a college sophomore, says she would have missed out on many life lessons if the regulations restricting children under 16 were in effect when she was younger.
It taught me to be myself and to do things on my own, and my brothers grew up doing it and they're very independent and I'm independent, and it would be sad because kids wouldn't be able to find out what they enjoy doing and learn equipment and animals and stuff like that.
Brian Dietrich says the Labor Department didn't consider how children are brought up on farms when it suggested changing the scope of what youth could do on farms classified as family partnerships, like the Dietrich's farm.
Well, I think they were missing the point that a lot of our children in agriculture that are involved in agriculture started at an early age. And a lot of the parents that have their children working with them side by side wouldn't be giving them a job that they know they couldn't handle.
I started off by milking and helping scrape down the barn, and then now I'm up to mowing hay. I'm hopefully soon going to start planting, and I haul loads, I unload loads. I can run any kind of tractor around the farm.
Meanwhile, Josh talks about how his dad safely trained him by easing him into doing work on the farm.
He just kept staying by my side, and then he tried telling me to do a little bigger stuff, and as the next couple of days I started to realize that he was letting me do more bigger things, more chores.
Jessica says family members are vital to having a reliable workforce and for the financial survival of the family farm.
We are out in the field sometimes till midnight picking up bales because it's going to rain when our other hired guys are getting sleep because they have to get up the next morning to milk. It wouldn't work. We'd have to find more people, and it's hard to find people with an agriculture background, and then you have to train them and they need to be reliable.
Brian adds that members of the family committed to the farm operation would have had to have been replaced by others to address the workload.
We would have had to hire a lot of outside help, 16 and older. And then would you have gotten the quality of someone that puts their heart and soul into it like a family member does?
The concerns of farm families across the United States, including the Dietrichs, have been alleviated because the Labor Department dropped its proposed regulations and vowed to work with farmers to further improve safety on American farms. Young people consider regulations and other daunting challenges when they think about a future in farming, but those challenges have not detracted the Dietrich children from wanting to pursue a career back on the family farm.
Ever since I was little and my dad had me around the farm, I mean, I've loved the animals, I love the field work. I mean, I used to, when I was really little, I used to sit in the hay barn with him in the car seat and just sit there.
I think it'd be fair if me and my siblings went in a partnership and started a farm ourselves.
I'm an education major, but I do plan to stay involved with the farm, like milking and things like that, and I do want to be in a partnership with my brothers, and I wouldn't give that up. So if I would have to choose between education and farming, it would definitely be farming.
I say to my children what my dad said to me. If they want to get into farming, I'm going to try everything I can to help them get there and get to that goal of taking over the farm.
Brian Dietrich is proud that his family's identity is tied to farming, and he hopes it stays that way.
Our home farm has been in the family since 1925. It's one of those things where you're proud of, and you hope that agriculture can stay profitable, that your children can take over and take over the business and continue for the next generation after that.
Next up, we'll visit two young farmers who took very different paths, but each ended up with major roles back on the family farm. When Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture continues. Welcome back to Pennsylvania Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture. Many farm kids who truly enjoy working with animals and the land opt not to pursue careers on the farm after seeing their parents struggle with low profit margins, long work hours, and restrictive regulations. But that has not been the case with Lehigh County farmer Mike Fink, who despite all the negatives in farming, never considered any other occupation.
Growing up on the farm had a lot of benefits, had some negatives, but I think there was more benefits growing up on a farm and coming in every day. I would come home from school, and I lived a mile away from here, get on my four-wheeler, come down here, and after school about 3:30, 4 o'clock, and do any kind of chores that need to be done.
Mike Fink says he decided early in life that he had a calling for farming.
It was pretty much always my occupation. I had my first break in '96 when I graduated high school. I got to take over a roadside market 3 miles from home, and that got me into vegetables and really grew my business quite a bit over the years.
Fink, who serves as state chairman of Pennsylvania Farm Bureau's Young Farmer and Rancher Committee, has this advice for young people interested in pursuing careers in agriculture.
If you're going to look at changing or diversifying your operation, you know, find something that you enjoy and that's going to be profitable for you, but make sure you talk to others that are in that industry first before you try that out. You know, get as much information from others as you can.
Mike adds that young farmers must be open to change and willing to diversify in order to meet the needs of consumers and to be prosperous in the future.
I want to survive, and I also want to thrive in whatever I do. And you know, every year has its challenges. In being diverse, there is a challenge in trying to get all the work done in a timely manner.
Fink says the U.S. has always been able to count on American farmers to feed the people of this country, and he worries about how that would be impacted if opportunities for youth interested in agriculture fade away.
Having a safe and abundant food supply here in the United States is vital to our national defense and our national security. I wouldn't want to rely on another country 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 miles away for a food supply.
The bottom line for Mike Fink is that nothing beats living and working on a farm, and he recommends the farm life for anyone.
I learned a lot growing up as a kid and working on the farm. You know, starting young was a big benefit to me. It made me fall in love with farming and its everyday challenges.
While Mike Fink never left the family farm, Northumberland County farmer Josh Daniels traveled halfway around the world before he fully realized how much he missed and appreciated life on the farm.
I went into the service, which I'm grateful I did that. I got to see the world, get to see different countries, different places, see how things are run. It taught me a lot there, and I was able to come back out of the service in 2004 and return to the farm just like I wanted to do.
Daniel says he was strongly encouraged by his father to try something other than farming before committing his life to agriculture.
When you're 18 years old, it's hard to know what you want to do for the rest of your life. So that gave me 4 years of just, seeing the rest of the world, seeing how much I really appreciated the farm and the community in the area I grew up in, and that's what made it easy for me to come back to the farm.
During his time in the military, Daniel served in Bosnia and Iraq, and his unit played a critical role in the U.S. invasion that overthrew Saddam Hussein.
I was there leading the invasion. I was part of 3rd Squadron, 7th U.S. Cavalry. We led the 3rd ID up along the western side of Baghdad into Baghdad. I was in a M1A1 battle tank, and we picked the routes and roads for the 3rd Infantry Division to follow up through. So yes, there was combat situations.
Josh admits that the military tempted him to be a career soldier, but the family farm won out in the end.
I did well in the service. I made rank quickly. I made sergeant, and at the end they were offering me more rank to stay, more bonus money to stay, and at that point, if I would have stayed for another 4 years, I would return to Iraq another 3 times. So they were doing quick turnovers, and not that I didn't want to serve my country anymore, I had a real calling to come back to the farm.
After returning home from the military, Daniels felt good about his future in farming, but realized that an influx of new regulations and proposed regulations had made farming even more challenging.
It deters me from expanding my business, hiring on new labor. It's a real threat. Even in the last 10 years with me being home on the farm, I had to build an office just for all the regulations and things that we have to comply with.
As Daniels looks to the future, a plan is already underway for him to take over ownership of the farm operation.
Me and my father have a good respect for one another, and we started a real slow transition. In the next couple of years, I'll be the sole owner, and he'll be working for me.
Next up, we'll meet 2 young women who grew up in the suburbs and never dreamed that their lives would be so strongly linked to farming, when Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture continues. Welcome back to Pennsylvania Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture. When you grow up on a dairy farm, you certainly become comfortable with large animals, and you also are called on to do many chores on the farm, including milking cows. Well, Casey Hall certainly looks comfortable here in the dairy parlor, but she did not grow up on a dairy farm. In fact, she didn't grow up on a farm at all, but she is interested in pursuing a career in an agricultural-related field.
I grew up an hour north of New York City, and farming was just something that I guess I knew it took place around us, but not in my immediate everyday life. I saw dairy cows and pigs and sheep in children's books, but for me to have a first-hand encounter was rare.
Although Casey had no background in agriculture, she decided to get involved in FFA after a visit from the group at one of her 9th grade classes.
They taught us about FFA and agriculture, and I fell in love. I don't know if I fell in love with so much the leadership, the communication they were teaching us, or if it was the actual agricultural aspect of it and learning that, hey, farming is actually pretty cool.
As her interest in farming grew, Casey took an agricultural biology class, which led to an eye-opening and adventurous experience for her first visit to a farm.
I was taking ag biology, and we were learning about artificial insemination, and so I think my first encounter on the farm was when we went to do artificial insemination. So I don't know if you can picture this, but I've never been on a farm before, and here I am with this glove on up to my elbow, learning all about how we do artificial insemination and breeding and how we have genetics, and it's so important. And so really that was my first encounter on a farm, so talk about jumping in feet first.
Casey, who interned for Pennsylvania Farm Bureau, says she's learned that farming is much more than growing corn or milking a cow.
Agriculture is very scientific. I don't think people realize the technicalities that go into it. I mean, of better animal breeding, of genetics, of how can we make, our crops go farther and push further on. I mean, we have engineers working on that every day. I mean, across the nation, across the world.
Although Casey doesn't see herself as a farmer in the near future, she does expect to pursue a career in a farming-related field after graduating from college.
My major is biological engineering, and am I wanting to be an engineer? I don't know yet. I'm also thinking about minoring in political science, so I really want to be the voice of farmers, the voice of agriculture. All too often we talk about how farmers aren't good at telling their story. Well, how can you when you're working beyond a full-time job? So I want to stop saying we need to go out and tell agricultural story and actually do it.
Casey has this advice for others from non-farming backgrounds.
If I can do it, anyone can do it. If I can make it happen and represent the state of Pennsylvania in agriculture, anyone can, and I really strongly encourage people to get involved.
Another woman who didn't grow up on a farm is now co-owner of an orchard and farm market in York County. Karen Paulus married into the farming business, but since then, her life hasn't been the same.
It's been a big learning curve, but it's a lot of fun, and it's nice to be in a place where I can work with my husband and my kids can come to work with me.
Paulus says she had no ties to farming before getting married, and even after that didn't expect to be involved on the orchard.
I still wasn't really involved when we first bought the farm because we had some young children, and as they started to get a little bit older, then I got more and more involved with the farm. We had talked about me going and teaching, and I had my certification for teaching. I was all set. That was kind of the original plan, that we were going to do that. But it just kind of made more sense for me to spend time here with my husband and grow the family business as opposed to being somewhere else.
Paulus used her background in education to increase the value of the farm operation by adding agritainment activities on the orchard.
We have groups that come back every single year that enjoy what we do. It's not just, hey, come out and pick some apples and play. We try very hard to teach children about farming.
Karen says the agritainment part of the business has grown dramatically from its humble beginning.
It was really the addition of the corn maze and then other fun things for kids to do, some slides and pedal carts and things like that. The more activities people can do, the more people will come.
Karen's husband Dan says the work and vision of his wife has helped increase profits on the family farm.
The biggest thing is there's more value to these trees and the views and just being on the property. I mean, I never thought people would want to have their kids' birthday parties in an apple orchard, and they come here all the time for that.
Paulus says many young farmers rely on help from others, and that was the case with their farm, as its former owner helped during the transition.
Even though he sold the orchard to Dan, he was still out here on a regular basis helping him learn the business and things that you don't think about, spacing of trees and thinning of trees.
Paulus says for those people interested in getting involved in farming from a non-farm background, they need to know one thing.
Farming is not a job for somebody who doesn't want to work hard. But at the same time, I think it's a very rewarding job.
Next up, we head to a cattle and hay operation in Cumberland County, where a first-generation farmer is a success on and off the farm, when Pennsylvania Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture continues. Welcome back to Pennsylvania Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture. Our final segment of the program takes us to a farm in Cumberland County, where a first-generation farmer is not only making his mark here on the farm, but also as a top-ranking official with the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture.
I was raised in a rural community, did not have any kind of farming experience. Started out at a young age working on a local dairy farm and kind of got the fever for agriculture. As they say, it kind of gets in your blood. Had the opportunity to work for that gentleman through high school. And really that kind of set my path towards knowing that at some point in time I would like to be in production agriculture.
Meals says there are many challenges for young people looking to get involved in farming.
Well, the biggest thing to getting into farming is you got to have a capital investment. You know, it's kind of one of those things is you can't grow a crop unless you have some type of soil to grow that crop on, whether it's 2 acres or whether it's 2,000 acres.
Meals says the key for him and other young people to become successful in farming is to accept help from those involved in agriculture.
A lot of local farmers got behind me and knew that I had that passion and were willing to help. There was a lot of times where I would rent or lease equipment from local guys that had it to help so I didn't have to go out and purchase it.
Matt, who formerly chaired Pennsylvania Farm Bureau's State Young Farmer and Rancher Committee, says Farm Bureau has played a major role in his career.
Farm Bureau was an opportunity for me to get involved. with young people that are facing some of the same challenges in production that I'm facing, but also as an opportunity to continue to take the stuff that I learned in 4-H, that I learned in college, and use that abilities that I learned and also redevelop those and look at different ways that I can use them in my operation.
Meals, who has chaired the American Farm Bureau Federation's Young Farmer and Rancher Committee, says his past experience and leadership roles have prepared him for his current job as Deputy Secretary with the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture.
I've been able to take the knowledge that I've learned at each one of those locations and apply to state government and how it affects our day-to-day operations. We can provide state government with that experience of, this is what this will do on an actual farm.
Meals, who says young farmers must be willing to be flexible with their operations in order to be successful, explains why he expanded into beef after exclusively growing crops.
The beef gives us an opportunity, of course, to diversify within our operation. We're kind of unique. We have things from start to finish. We have a 40-cow cow-calf operation, so we take our own cows, we breed those cows and then take their offspring and bring them into our other facility and then raise them out to where we can provide that then to the local community for a beef product that we can put our name on and people know where the beef come from.
Meanwhile, Meals says his life would have been much different if proposed Department of Labor regulations focusing on youth working in agriculture, referenced earlier in the program, were in effect when he was growing up.
If we had those regulations in when I was in 4-H, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to learn about agriculture. That law would affect a lot of other areas. It would have affected working with animals like these. It would have affected being able to operate equipment. That would have definitely affected how we bring the next generation into agriculture.
One of Farm Bureau's top missions is to ensure that American agriculture has a bright future now and for generations to come. We traveled to Columbia County to talk with Pennsylvania Farm Bureau President Carl Shaffer about that critical role.
Farm Bureau is very actively involved now in trying to prepare the youth of our generation to have them, enable them to take over the farms and go out and start farming. So we have a lot of programs now. We start out with youth programs, we have collegiate Farm Bureau programs, we have young farmer and rancher programs. All these programs are designed to build leadership for rural Pennsylvania and help prepare our young people to become involved in agriculture.
Shaffer says children learn about farming at an early age and about the economic realities of farming.
They have to be involved from a very early age. Usually with the parents is the best way to keep them involved, keep them active, keep them interested. The very best thing we can do, though, to make sure these kids are interested, agriculture has to be profitable. If it's not profitable, they won't be interested, they won't stay on the farm, and they won't continue to want to farm.
Shaffer talks about the leading threat to agriculture, young farmers, and future generations on the farm.
Overregulation is the most critical thing that's threatening the future of agriculture in America. Unless we wake up and use some common sense in dealing with these regulations, we're going to be soon importing food from offshore, and that it's not something we want to deal with.
Finally, we asked Shaffer, who had numerous career opportunities off the farm, why he remained committed to a career in agriculture.
What made me stay in farming, I think, is what makes most farmers stay, is because of the success of raising a crop, harvesting and putting it in. That self-satisfaction that we get out of producing something and really being a very big contributor to the United States economy and to feeding the world.
All Americans reap the benefits of a strong agricultural industry, as the United States truly produces the safest, most abundant, and affordable food in the world. But in order to maintain that standard, we must support programs and policies that enable young people to become the next generation on the family farm or to pursue careers in agricultural-related fields. Young people are well aware of the many obstacles in agriculture, but due to their enthusiasm and perseverance, we should all feel confident about the future of farming and the availability of healthy food in America. This has been a production of the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau. For more information, visit our website at pfb.com.